Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, everybody. It's episode 51 of Studio 8.1 with myself, Jarvis Todd, publisher of Telemedia Magazine, Telemedia News,
Absolutely.
Telemedia
And
Online.
possibly the gentleman.
Possibly the gentleman. That's an in-house joke, everyone. And this is our opportunity to sit down with the brains behind it all, and that's Mr. Paul Skeldon up there or over there, depending.
Brains and beauty.
Range of Beauty. He's the editor, he's the wordsmith, he's the guy that fills all of our media channels with all of the news content throughout the week. And I hope that you use it as a regular source of intel in order to make your businesses more successful. If you don't know what telemedia is about, we're talking about how you monetize connected consumers. That's using value-added services, premium content, all the clever mobile billing and payments technology that goes around that, all the platforms, the networks that deliver it, and all those clever marketing people that help you engage those consumers. That's what we mean by telemedia. We're going to do a quick 20-minute rundown of what's been interesting this week. So, hello, Paul. Thank you very
Hello,
much for
mate.
joining us. I know you've been, well, under normal circumstances, I'd say Paul's been really, really busy. But the truth of the matter is, everyone, that maybe it's because we've come off the back of the Easter holidays, and maybe it's because I'm a Londoner, because because um, there's been a lot of consolidation in the market, but it has actually been quite a quiet week in the world of telemedia. However, we have dug out a few little snippets of joy for you, and we're just going to run through those very quickly over the next, I would say, 15 minutes, Paul.
I think it's a short, sharp one this time.
Yeah. So the way this is going to go, so we've got some interesting news, some good news, obviously, because that's what we're about, in terms of how the MVAS sector is booming, if we didn't know that already. And we've got some results of a study from a company that I've not heard of before, Fact MR. Sounds like a boy band, but there you go. It's not. It's a research company that have got some very interesting facts and figures that Paul's been diving into this week, which I think you guys should know about. And then we're also going to talk about some of the interesting announcements around World Telemedia Marbella, which have come out over the last couple of weeks, in case you hadn't missed them. That's coming up, Marbella, that is coming up on the 6th, 7th, and 8th of October. The 6th being the big networking day, 7th and 8th being the expo and conference. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the news that surrounded that. And we're also going to be picking out some of the LinkedIn vibes around some of those leading companies in the telemedia sector. So without further ado,
Mm.
the clap never seems to come out on the microphone, which is weird. Paul, let's start with the main story of the week, which is that MVAS is booming. Thanks to our, as I said, our friends at FactMRs and their study. Mobile value-added services are booming, and will continue to do so throughout the next sort of decade, I guess. And
It's a decade, yeah.
they forecast up till 2034. I mean, I don't know if we'll still be doing, goodness knows how many episodes we'll be up to by then, but it's going to be quite
Well,
frightening.
we both know we'll still be doing it.
We'll still be doing same old nonsense. And I mean, obviously, smartphone penetration is driving our industry forward. Innovations in content, clearly, new and exciting emerging markets are coming on stream all the time, not least the MENA regions, which we've talked about in the past. So Paul, thanks for, because
Mm.
we had some kind of gloomy figures in the previous episode. Back to business now. Boom.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's as you mentioned sort of earlier on. It has been quite quiet out there, which I think isn't necessarily a bad thing. Usually, there's a bit of a lull after Mobile World Congress when because everyone has sort of released all their sort of news and research and everything around that. But it usually starts to pick up around now, and it's surprisingly quiet. I suspect we're in a sort of phase of consolidation for the sort of industry, sort of building on all the things that have happened because a lot's happened in the last sort of 4 years, as we discovered in our 50th episode special last time, that things have really motored on. So I think there's a lot of that. However, there is this research out around the global mobile value added services market, MVAS, the survey looks at pretty much everything that you can consider to be a sort of value added content service that's sold through mobile. So it covers sort of pretty much everything, which I guess is why it's such a high sort of value market. 3.5 billion by 2034 it is predicted. I mean, it's already well into or pretty much into the billions now. But it's been driven by all the things we've talked about over the many months we've been doing this. Penetration of smartphones in traditionally low value markets, particularly sort of Africa, Middle East, has seen a huge sort of drive towards this. East Asia is now, from the MVAS side of things, being seen as possibly the next big thing. So that's something to look out for. Telemedia people. We've been very focused lately on Middle East and North Africa, and Africa generally. I think sort of perhaps a couple of years hence, we might well be looking at East Asia as a sort of big market opportunity. So that's useful to spot. Some of the Central American countries are looking quite interesting as well from a MVAS perspective. What's interesting is the kind of things that are popular though. So it's the stuff you might expect, gaming and streamed video content, which again is something we've talked about a lot, and that really is driving the market. But there's an increasing amount of interest globally in the use of virtual reality and augmented reality and things like that as part of other services. I think if you sort of read the actual whole report, it delves much more into where these things are used. It's not just VR and AR for the sake of it. They're buried within other things. So I think that's quite interesting. The other thing that really struck me about this as well was that one of the big growth areas, or the next big growth area, is going to come from mobile value-added services sold within the enterprise market. So rather than sort of to consumers, it's about how to improve services for businesses. And I think that is sort of looking at how you might use and deploy content, which might well be to do with I guess internal information and training and that kind of thing, as well as tools like virtual reality and augmented reality to help people do their jobs. So I think that's something I hadn't really sort of factored in myself, as to that's a whole potential big market for people with MVAS expertise, is selling it to within the business space. And I think that is something, the years ahead that we certainly will be looking at.
Well, it's interesting you say that though, Paul, because I mean, you wouldn't. I remember only 12 months ago having a conversation with a very well regarded billing aggregator in the UK. Whilst we were having a very nice lunch in Barcelona, and he said to me, "What do you mean by VAS?" And I found it kind of ironic because, of course, they're front and center of what we mean by VAS. They just don't happen to use that acronym. And I suppose, when you look at it in the broader sense, as we do now, because in the old days there was, 3 or 4, 5 maybe key services which we would consider to be telemedia services. That's blown out of the water completely now. And if you look at any sort of value service that's being received or consumed or is being used to engage a mobile consumer, that is front and center of the telemedia industry. And we've been talking about things. I mean, I remember not that long ago, probably a couple of years ago, and you're talking about education, edutainment, those kinds of things. And I felt at the time that they were a little bit peripheral to what was core to what we thought of being, the telemedia industry or the telemedia industry's sort of remit. And then, fast forward a couple of years and you look at the World Telemedia event and you look at the kind of services, lifestyle services, health, diet, recipes, all of these kinds of areas have now very much come under the umbrella of what we mean by telemedia. And therefore, I think, no surprise that we're seeing growth in our market and opportunities in our market, but also very specifically, those services being used to open up new markets. So whereas perhaps in an established market by the UK where, gambling and games, that works and that's fine, in other potentially huge markets, they're a no-go. And that's one of the reasons why I think we are seeing big numbers being researched or being reported by researchers. That's why we're seeing, ever increasing numbers of people coming to World Telemedia. And that's why we're seeing, thankfully, I mean, I think it's something like 200,000 unique hits a year coming into telemediaonline.co.uk, which is obviously populated by some of your fantastic editorials. So, keep doing what you're doing, mate.
Yeah, well, and do more. I think I think how many more people are we going to get looking at this if it sort of expands into the sort of enterprise world as well? I think that's fascinating. And what I love about it is that sort of it just constantly evolves and grows. So as you say, it's hard to define what MVAS means, but that's because it's a constantly growing field, and who knows what we'll be talking about in 2 years' time as a sort of valuable sort of mobile content type. The other thing that's interesting that pops out of the report, that there's a little chart that's in the news story we put on the website about it, a link to which will appear below. Is that it looks at the kind of platforms, so SMS and interactive voice and video response, so IVR, but also with video, which is interesting, and all those sorts of things, and sort of the consumer enterprise sort of market. It lists devices, and it sort of says about mobiles and smartphones and tablets and laptops, but it also lists others. And I think that's something that's potentially worth keeping at the back of the telemedia mind, in that we're very focused on mobile value added services, what that's actually going to mean, what those sort of devices are, and how that content then is shaped is going to also change. I don't know what that's going to be, but I think this is what gives this such longevity to this market. It'll just keep evolving as technology changes.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, one of the things that I was going to say is that if anyone's interested, we've been writing about this sector now for, well, in excess of 25 years. And as a result, it means that the Telemedia Online website has now reached some pretty impressive sort of milestones in terms of digital marketing, which surprised me. It's been brought to my attention recently that, in fact, we've got a domain rating now, Paul, of something approaching 70, which is not far off, say, The Guardian in the UK. So it just goes to show that, firstly, if you are interested in this space, and if you're interested in promoting your services, you really should take our media channels seriously. But also, what's really nice is that the reason why these ratings are going up and why the stats are so impressive is because this is becoming has moved from that sort of strange little niche or best kept secret, consistently into the mainstream. And as you say, the sorts of services and the sorts of technologies that our industry have been incubating for the last 25 years are now becoming, fundamentally part of the toolbox for any business that wants to be successful in the new age. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, Paul, obviously you picked up earlier on the fact that it's clear, and we would expect markets to grow where smartphone penetration is increasing, and thankfully, we're continuing to see that trend. However, there is politically now some moves in the UK and certainly across Europe, looking, and this is maybe not new news to people, but obviously, this issue about the potential harm that smartphones do to young consumers. Now, no question that part of the boom has been because this young, high-tech, smartphone savvy consumer base has been incubated for quite a few years. Generally speaking, in the sort of Europe, I guess it's between about 11 and 12 that a child gets their first smartphone, and the reason they do that is primarily because they don't want to feel, their parents don't want them to feel left out, of which that's a valid argument. It then obviously opens up market opportunities, and given that there needs to be parental consent around perfectly harmless services, games, etc. However, there is the dark side. And in the UK this week, I think they've been talking a little bit about the potential or a lobby, and I think this is going on in other countries, about looking at ways to restrict the younger consumers' access to smartphones. And some are even talking about, potentially saying that it's harmful and therefore they should be banned, almost like smoking, and that you shouldn't be allowed to have a smartphone till you're 16. Now, my gut feeling is that that can't possibly happen. But then again, in the days of prohibition or with regards to smoking, we've seen some quite strong laws coming to the UK with regards to smoking this week, in fact. Do you think that there's genuinely a threat in terms of the society and government looking at smartphone penetration and thinking, well, actually, maybe there needs to be a cutoff? Do you think that could possibly happen?
I think not in some ways. I don't know. I mean, I'm conflicted as a parent of teenagers on a sort of personal level. I think there should be more constraint over what they can access and what is put in front of them. And I think something does need to be done with it. I mean, there's moves sort of for very different reasons in the US that TikTok has to be hived off from being owned by the Chinese and set up as a new company and all the rest of it. That's very much for political reasons, but I think sort of it does bring into sort of focus how social media sites is the sort of gateway drug for young teens and even younger getting onto sort of mobile services, and through that, I guess, eventually moving to spending money through sort of mobile value-added services. I think you can't say no, you can't have a phone. I think what you have to do is be much more sort of strict about what can be seen on it. And I think possibly that the law needs to look more at how sites are run, particularly social media sites, I think. So I think overall, done correctly, no, it's not a threat to our industry, because I think you're still going to have kids coming through who want to buy and use and enjoy stuff on phones, who then become sort of much higher paying consumers as they come of age. But I think we do need to be careful about what they do access. And I think just saying, all right, no, if you're not under 16, you can't have a smartphone, is not going to work. It's I mean, I think my own children would kill me if this law. I think I'd have to fight them off. But I just don't think that's going to happen. And I think there are very many good reasons for kids to have devices, particularly safety and education. But so I think the focus needs to be more on what is available and what they can access. That is what we need to look at.
Well, who knows? If we are still doing these podcasts in 2034, maybe
I will be. I promise you.
We'll be lamenting the ban on smartphones to under 16s and how
under 35.
How it's ripped the arse out of the market. I mean, this obviously, market or responsibility from our industry comes into play. You mentioned that with regards to publishers, or they're not publishers, are they? But apparently, the social media networks and in the industry at large needs responsibility, and there's no more greater supporter of that side of the industry than our dear friends at Avena, who we're going to talk about now. It's slightly old news, but I think it's important to, as we start to ramp up the marketing for World Telemedia Marbella, 6th to the 8th of October, in case you didn't realize. There are still some hotel rooms available. Otherwise, you may be pitching a tent on the beach if you're not quick. But we're delighted once again to have Avena as one of our premium platinum sponsors, actually, for World Telemedia. And I thought that I would take an opportunity to just find out what our dear friend David Lotvi, the CEO and founder, had been up to on LinkedIn. And as many of you will know, he's a regular speaker on the circuit and a great supporter of our sector. And there were two really interesting stories, actually, or posts that he put up on LinkedIn. You can check those out, and maybe Geraldine will put the links down on the blurb below the podcast. But he highlighted a piece of news that I'm not sure we picked up on. Forgive me if you did, Paul. But there is some new regulation in France with regards to AI that he felt was going to be a bit of a game changer. and he thought that was good news for Avena, as the entire tech world will be able to. Well, he felt that the French government's sort of take on how to regulate AI would help supercharge their fight against fraud, because they had national support from their government. So it sounded to me as though this was highlighting how governments, and I know the UK have been, sort of playing backwards and forwards with this idea and wrestling with it, but not really doing anything significant. But his point, I think, here was that the French government have actually taken a firm stance with regards to how they're going to handle AI, and that once you get that level of support, or and create some sort of sensible framework, you can start to move forward. And I don't know if you picked up on that particular story.
Yeah, we did last week's newsletter that we do sort of in the weeks when we're not doing this, did look at the
I didn't read it.
Well, it was based around the US signing a memorandum of understanding with the UK about how to begin to look at regulating AI, and the EU has in March enacted their AI Regulation Act, and I think the French government's stance on it is based out of this sort of European EU sort of directive of how to do it. What's interesting about it is that, I mean, to be fair, I didn't read all of the documentation because it's like hundreds of thousands of pages. But the overarching thing is that they all want to do something about regulating AI. Not really sure what that is, or how you do it, or indeed how you put in laws, because AI will change between now and next week and next year and the next decade. So I think, yes, of course, AI has to be regulated in some way. In many ways, it's probably too late. It's out of the bag. But yes, I mean, talking to David from Avena in Barcelona, I mean, he's really interesting in the sort of his view of like how fraudsters use AI to create frauds, and obviously how then the industry, and Avena in particular, has to use AI to counteract fraud. And currently, possibly, we're winning. The fraudsters aren't. But that'll shift and change over time. And I think so. No amount of regulation is going to stop people using AI for bad. But yeah, it's an interesting area that we increasingly have to cover.
Yeah, so I mean, as a non-technical being, I would assume that if you've got AI versus AI, then they'll cancel each other out, and all will be well.
Well, I think it's more they use AI to come up with the ideas and to deliver, like voice AI that can replicate someone. They can imitate your voice to the degree that any kind of biometrics based on your voice is now null and void.
Yeah.
Facial recognition, they can generate. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the AI on the other side has to come up with a way of how do you sort of spot something that's been created by AI. And it can do it. I mean, it is, yes, I guess ultimately they're just battling it out, and we'll just sit back and watch in servitude to the computers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating area, and it's not something that if you'd have asked me 5 years ago, would I be writing a lot of stuff about AI and what its impact on telemedia, but it is actually key to.
Yeah. Well, I was just about to say again, we are now, myself, Paul, and all the other industry luminaries in the World Telemedia think tank are now open for business with regards to putting together an absolutely killer conference workshop and product demo program for Marbella. So anybody that would like or has a good story to tell, now is the time to start getting in touch with us and opening discussions. We've already got 3 or 4 major businesses, including Google, working with us to make sure that we cover all the hottest topics. So please do get in touch if you're interested in getting involved this year. Just one other thing, actually, because we might as well plug Avena, because thank goodness thank goodness for all of our anti-fraud companies. But as I say, they are this section is about their premium sponsorship or platinum sponsorship. David also posted something very interesting on LinkedIn, which I would urge everyone to look at, which was a a piece of news about Italy. It's the Italian police seizing 250 million euros from TIM, that's Telecom Italia, over alleged phone scams, which is not in itself very funny. I don't know why I laughed. Although the subtext to David's to that piece of news was that had they been using Avina's anti-fraud system, they might they might well not find themselves in that particular predicament. So I would say let that be a lesson to you all, and you know, I feel that yeah, the cost of not working with Avina in this particular case is very clear.
Yeah,
And
or
again,
at the very least, come and meet Avina in Marbella and discuss with them. Maybe they're the company to do business with.
or MCP or Impello or other
Others are available.
anti-fraud companies are available. Going back to what we were talking about earlier on about the explosion of MVAS services, and I know we've talked about this quite a lot, and certainly it started out with a sort of a not an obsession. I mean, it was just a real delight for everyone to see the explosion of games as being one of the leading MVAS services in our sector, and some of the statistics around games and gaming were just absolutely astonishing and continue to be astonishing. I also noticed there was a fantastic piece of news put out by our dear friends at Cookies as well, who we mentioned last week, I think, and they have been well established right from the get-go in the world of esports. You know, starting out as championing gaming, and then which has evolved into esports, which is the competitive side of gaming. They put a really good post out actually, which has got 3 or 4 really interesting slides around why you should be considering esports and why they believe esports is the next rock and roll. From a telemedia perspective, I think last week we talked about them setting up in Dubai because they feel that the MENA region is ripe for these kinds of services, and for obvious reasons. But the post goes with regards to Cookies. Mobile's been at the heart of Cookies business since its beginning, and now more than ever, we know how mobile is crucial to engaging users, and esports are the perfect services, especially in those countries where mobile and gaming are growing at the speed of light. Again, going back to what we were saying about the reason why they've set up in Dubai. There's then a couple of really interesting slides, and a few. I won't go through all of it because again, we'll get Jerry to put the link at the bottom of the page for this podcast. But I was absolutely astonished at this one, and this is the first time Paul's heard this. What do you think? Right, let's see. How do we do this? Games played via smartphone. What is the percentage? So if you're thinking smartphone, you're thinking games console, all the other things, what percentage of games do you think are currently being played on the smartphone? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, mate.
I'm going high with this because I think I read something about this a couple of years ago. I reckon it's probably something like 90%.
Oh, it's not so bad. Well, okay, it's not 90%. It's actually 67.7%. But nevertheless, you were right. You were quite right to go high.
2/3. That's pretty high.
That's why we don't do research, people. The point being that percentage makes the mobile, or the smartphone, the most popular gaming device worldwide. So forget Nintendo, forget whatever, Xbox, all that kind of stuff. More people, nearly 70% of the people in this planet of ours are playing games on their smartphones, primarily. So, I mean, that to me really, I thought was astonishing, right? First of all, the other thing the other point that they made about esports is that they, and quite rightly, it represents a paradigm shift in gaming culture, whereby gaming had traditionally been a sort of man versus computer type thing, but actually what people want to do is play against each other, and it also creates this sort of new culture of professional competition, which is obviously what's fueled the esports sector and the culture of esports. And when you think about it, you'd rather play Scrabble or whatever against a human being than against a computer, because ultimately winning against the computer is just an algorithm, whereas winning against a real human being is a real emotional, or creates a real emotion response. And the final thing I'd say, and I think this just goes to show that Paul and I really shouldn't be doing this in 2034, is because of the 5 top games that are currently being played out there in the big wide world. I've only heard of one of them, and that was Call of Duty. And I'm not even going to ask Paul whether he knows the other 4, because I know he won't. So it,
Yeah,
it
no, I
just
won't.
goes to show that the old guard are drifting further and further away from the cold face. But that said, we'll get right back up to speed when we go to Marbella on the 6th
We'll share our
of
wisdom and
October.
perspective, I
And
think.
we will be able to, yeah, we will be able to get up to speed. And listen, I mean, I think you'll make a lot of money if you come to the show, but at the very least, you'll be able to go home and have a decent conversation with your children about what's kicking ass in the world of mobile value-added services.
Yeah.
Final footnote before we go. I just wanted to also, and I don't want to say shout out, but I just said it, so I've done it. To our dear friends at More Than 160. If you haven't seen already, the 2nd annual Antonio Meucci Award, Global Telco Awards, have been launched, and they're going to be hosted again, I think, in Madrid at the Wholesale Congress, which is a great event. I went last year.
You were there. You gave an award, I think.
I did. I gave an award. Our dear friend Andreas and Maria are doing a really fantastic job, really trying to, I think, up the game. I think, generally speaking, the awards circuit in our sector is a bit dry. I think there's, if I dare say it, reason to be slightly critical of the judging processes, and a lot of sponsors tend to win the awards these days. And I think we all know where I'm going with this, so I better stop before I upset some dear friends. But the Meucci Awards launched last year with a very strong ethos with having very expert panels putting in a lot of effort to really analyze all of the submissions and applications. I felt that the awards process had credibility, which I think is what you really need. There's no point winning an award if it's not worth winning. So I would urge everyone to go to so is my age, Antonio Meucci, and that's spelled MEUCCI.com. Check it out, find out what that's all about, and get your applications in, because this, I think, my friends, is an award worth winning, and definitely I think it will add plenty of credibility to whatever services that you happen to be running in our sector, and we will continue to champion that award. You were a judge, weren't you, last year?
No, I wasn't,
you
actually.
Weren't?
I would say it was floated past me, but I think they had other more expert people on the panel.
Well, in that case,
yeah.
I take it all back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was no backhanders. No, I think they just had a whole load of people, but it was, you're right, very
Too many
independently
experts.
judged. It was properly done.
They
It
had too
was
many.
interesting to see who won. It's a very different winners list. Yeah. So yes, we'll see what comes about this year.
Okay, well, listen, mate, thanks for taking time out for
thank you.
deep. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. See everyone out there in 2 weeks' time. Thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to spreading more telemedia news with you.
Joy
in sunny May.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's hope the sun comes out.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.